People are joining in. We'll
Okay, okay, sure. Yeah, I thought we were just in a panelist mode. So sorry. Yeah.
So people are joining in. I think there are people, around 80 participants have joined in. I think because of the time constraint, we'll start right away. So people will keep on joining in, I suppose. Good morning, everyone. People are joining in. We'll
Okay, okay, sure. Yeah, I thought we were just in a panelist
webinar
mode. So sorry. Yeah.
On renewable energies and e-mobility initiatives under the Saksham program. I think of being organized by PCRA under the aegis of. There are people, around 80 participants have joined in. I think because of the time constraint, we'll start Chief General Manager of Indian Oil Corporation Corporate Office. People will keep on joining in, I suppose. Basically, all of you. Good morning, everyone. People are joining in.
Okay, okay, sure. Yeah, I thought we were just in a panelist
webinar on renewable energies and e-mobility initiatives under the Saksham program. I think of being organized by PCRA under the aegis of. There are people, around 80 participants have joined in. I think because of the time constraint, we'll start right away. Energy conservation and optimal utilization and finding alternative means of energy. Basically, because all of us know that we are heavily dependent on fossil fuel, and in terms of our availability also, we are dependent on imports. Almost 85%, more than 85%, we are import dependent in case of fossil fuels. And probably this year, all of us as individual citizen would have felt the pinch of the impact these fossil fuels can have. And parallelly, we all will be aware that means our requirement of these fuels is, as India as a growing economy, the fuel requirement will keep on going on, increasing. And so we need to and this will be the fulcrum of our energy for quite some time, but we need to find alternatives and indigenous solutions which will probably mitigate the impact that we are facing and experiencing right now. So in today's session, I'm joined by a distinguished panel of speakers. We have been working with them for quite some time, collaborating with them, and we have gained a lot from their experience and knowledge. So let me introduce the three speakers. I'm joined here by Mr. Dr. Rahul Valvankar, who is President and Managing Director of Customized Energy Solutions India Private Limited, and he's also the founder and of India Energy Storage Alliance, IESA. And I personally know him for since the starting days of this initiative. Nothing had started in India, and he was propagating this not just in India but across the world. So you will he will enlighten you how this is as an initiative, how it is going to contribute on energy conservation and switch off to import reduction of fossil fuels. Then I would like to introduce Mr. Ram Kumar, who is Associate Director of PwC, and one of the largest consulting firm in the world, and he has vast experience in renewable energy consultancy industry, and presently working on energy utilities resource vertical of PwC, and he has been supporting us in even now in various renewable energy initiatives. So we have benefited, and I hope you will also benefit with his presence today. And then I would like to introduce my friend and colleague, Mr. Rohit Kumar, GM Retail Development from our head office, marketing head office, who is leading the internal initiative on propagating e-mobility in terms of charging, swapping under retail development area of our retail group. And he will share our vast substantial plans of scaling up and supporting this initiative, so that India has an alternative solution available, or our citizens would have some solution available for adopting to. So thank you all for joining, and then there's a slight change in the schedule because of pre-commitments of our distinguished speakers. So first, Rahul, Dr. Rahul will be taking the session, and then Mr. Rohit will be taking the session on charging swapping, and then Mr. Ramkumar will be taking the session on renewable energy. So I would request you to put out your queries and participate in this interaction and benefit, so that all of us as Indian citizens can contribute in this initiative and make India less import dependent or less fossil fuel dependent to the extent possible. Thank you, and I welcome Dr. Rahul. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Praveenji and IOCL team for inviting me for this important seminar and taking this initiative. And thank you very much to the other panelists for agreeing to the last minute change of the order. I'm going to focus on the opportunities for the EV sector for accelerating low carbon transition, with more focus on the battery side of the discussion. Just as a background, as Praveenji mentioned, I am the President and Managing Director for Customized Energy Solutions India, which is part of a global organization. CES globally is headquartered in US, and we also have operations in Canada, Japan, Mexico, and Vietnam. And we are not just a consulting company, but we are a consulting and services company where we manage more than 15 gigawatt of assets, including more than 10 gigawatt of renewables, and take care of the remote monitoring, dispatch, scheduling. And we have also been one of the largest third-party operators of grid-scale energy storage assets, where currently our US operations manages more than 1,500 megawatt hour of energy storage assets and dispatches those in day-to-day electricity market. So we have a very good understanding of not just about the theory or about the presentations, but actually how these assets are operating in the market. We have also been involved in e-mobility since almost 2008, when some of the early EV deployments with companies like Phoenix Motors, Proterra, and Alten Nano started looking into grid to EV to grid services as well, or vehicle to grid services as it is called. So we have been involved in the complete ecosystem and have worked with more than 500 clients across the value chain. As Praveenji mentioned, I founded India Energy Storage Alliance in 2012 to create awareness about advanced energy storage and e-mobility technologies in India. In fact, next week we are celebrating the 10th anniversary of ISA. So I hope that all of you will join us for India Energy Storage Week, which is happening in Delhi, as well as it is happening in a hybrid mode next week. So currently ISA has grown to now more than 160 member companies across the various ecosystem, including Oil India, HPCL are part of that. And I'm hoping that IOCL also this year will become part of the network. So coming to the global picture, both on the stationary storage as well as on the e-mobility, in last 5-6 years, we have seen exponential growth. Some of the hotspots have been US, Japan, Europe, even Australia is emerging as a hotspot. And we do hope that in terms of the stationary storage side, now with Ministry of Power taking lead on creating energy storage guidelines, we are going to see a lot more projects being implemented in India. We already have a couple of large projects from NTPC and Solar Energy Corporation of India, which are looking at deploying at a single location more than 1 gigawatt hour scale of energy storage in single location. So I think we are right at just a cusp of the exponential growth of these energy storage technologies in India. But for today's session, the focus is on the EV side. So right-hand side, you are seeing the global trend in terms of the EV deployment, where you can see that even despite the COVID, we have seen globally the EV increase continuing. For many initial years, global demand was driven primarily by China and US, but over last 2-3 years, Europe has also emerged as a very fast adopter, and in fact, it is likely that Europe will become like a second largest market for EVs. And now in India, with the electric two-wheelers, three-wheelers catching up, as well as some of the mass scale deployment for electric buses, as well as maybe corporate fleets, India should emerge. If you go it at a country by country level, in next 5 years, India should emerge among the top 5 destinations. That's our expectation. Now, many times the question gets asked is EV adoption really environmental friendly? And this is a part where I think all of us need to be very, very careful, because obviously there are vested interest or people who prefer to have status quo, where these type of questions get raised again and again. And basically the common tactic is that create some question mark about is this real or is this fictional, and let's just have some debate, let's just have some reports or analysis keep on coming for next 2 or 3 years so that we can derail the momentum. So this is a part where I would like to mention, and in fact Tesla has released very interesting data based on the actual emissions, where even right now using the average grid electricity, you can see that electric vehicles are much more environment friendly as compared to the IC engine vehicles, both considering the manufacturing emissions as well as the emissions during the operation phase. Even in India, if we have the electricity coming in more than say 70%, 80% coming in from fossil fuel, it can still be better. Especially because what happens is with IC engine vehicles, obviously, as all of you are aware, that the particulate emission is a major concern, which creates issues in terms of the congested cities where actually people are very close to the source of the emission. Whereas when you shift the emissions from tailpipe to the central generators, it is much easier to actually capture and put in environmental control systems at the central level. So even if we continue to use the electricity mix the way it is, electric vehicles can be environmental friendly. Obviously, the Honorable Prime Minister has set a very ambitious goal where India is moving towards having 500 gigawatt of renewables before end of this decade. So the electricity mix is going to keep on getting better and better in terms of the overall emissions. So there is no doubt in my mind that EVs is the right way to move forward. Now, coming to question of the batteries, this is not a new question. What I'm showing on the screen is a 1911 Scientific American magazine cover page featuring Thomas Edison, who is famous for the invention of the electric bulb, but one of his passionate project was actually building nickel-ion battery, and he was convinced that that is the right battery for electric vehicle. And on the right-hand side photo, you see that the nameplate suggests it is like 1,000-mile endurance run. So that was not on a single charge, but that time he was looking for having a battery which can last for 1,000 mile over the life of the vehicle. Now we are getting batteries which can outlast million-mile driving distance. So that you can see that over the last 100 years, the scale at which the improvement has happened in the performance of the batteries. If you see just a statistical in terms of the reason why EVs died out was that primarily EVs were costlier. And the second thing was the range anxiety, because that time with the limited energy density of the batteries, EVs were good for only sort of a low distance travel. Whereas in around First World War and after that, US went for a massive building of the national highways and road systems, where people started moving out of cities and started moving towards suburbs, where obviously IC engine vehicles were much more reliable than the electric vehicles. And it has taken us almost more than 100 years to now get back, and now EVs are again starting to dominate the landscape. Now, one of the key reasons for that is the cost reduction. And left-hand side, you are seeing the chart where you can see that by 2010, probably around the world, we had hardly around 10 to 15 gigawatt hour of annual production capacity for lithium-ion batteries, which are primarily used in modern EVs. By 2020, this global capacity increased to more than 500 gigawatt hour. And in fact, now already in 2022, it has crossed more than 800 gigawatt hour. And it is expected that by 2030, we will have anywhere from 3,000 to 5,000 gigawatt hour of annual production capacity of the batteries. So you can see that the manufacturing is being scaled up exponentially. And with that comes the price reduction. But it is not only happening because of the manufacturing scale up. On the right hand side, you can see different technologies and how they are improving on the energy density. So the energy density improvement is important from 2 points. One is by having batteries which are more energy dense. That means you need less raw materials for making the battery, the same size battery. Also, the weight is less. That means that the electric vehicle can actually go further and can accommodate more passengers or go longer distance. And also in terms of the space also, the energy density is improving. That means that you can accommodate more batteries into the electric vehicles, eliminating the range anxiety. So many times we tend to keep on asking, okay, when are we going to get to the $100 batteries or $50 batteries? But what is important to understand is that the reason why EVs are taking off is not just because of the cost reduction, but also because of the performance improvement. And there are many applications like buses or other areas where if you choose the right type of the batteries, then the economics is very clearly already present. So we don't need to wait for some imaginary battery to arrive in 2 years, 3 years. We can start adopting certain routes or certain type of vehicles where EVs are already economical. And then over next 10 years, 20 years, start seeing each year keep on adding more type of consumers to the EV transition. As I mentioned on one of the earlier slides, we are now seeing these various new type of batteries coming up, even with the conventional batteries, with even cathode like NCA or NMC cathode or LFP cathode. We are easily getting batteries which can last for 3,000 to 5,000 cycles. And nowadays, like for example, Tesla has a 400-mile driving range on a single charge. That means if you have a battery which can last for more than 2,500 cycles, then that way you can get easily 1 million miles. So there are even other technologies like LTO batteries, which can even last for more than 10,000 cycles. So the million mile is not meant for try to show as a something new, but it is just to basically get rid of this anxiety amongst the investors or among the financing entities where they are still not ready to finance electric vehicles because they think that, oh, EVs, what happens if the battery dies, and then what happens to the residual value of the EVs? Whereas nowadays, if you are using a good quality electric vehicle with a properly designed battery pack, then you should be thinking about what you are going to do with the battery after you scrap the electric vehicle, because the batteries can then be used for second life or stationary application or some other applications before you end up sending this for the recycling. So this is a one major difference which has happened as compared to the earlier part, where mainly we were using lead acid batteries, and these batteries were lasting hardly 6 months to maybe 2 years in electric vehicles. And there was always a question mark that what happens to the value of the electric vehicle when the battery dies. There are also other technologies coming in like solid state batteries, which can have a much higher energy density. There are even technologies like lithium sulfur or other, which are being seen specifically for even not just road transport, but even for looking at maybe air transport, drones and other applications. So a lot of innovation is going to happen in this space, and many more technologies will come in. But that doesn't mean that we have to wait for those technologies. The technologies which are already getting commercialized are perfectly suitable for driving the EV adoption right now. Now on the policy side, here are some data points where we are. So again, Niti Aayog had set a target of like getting to almost around 30% EVs by 2030. And there was a lot of opposition for that, saying that Niti Aayog is trying to move much faster. But if you see actually most of the other developed countries, almost each of them have a much steeper target for that. And this is not being driven by just subsidies, but this is now starting to happen because now EVs are more economic as well as environmentally beneficial vehicles as compared to the IC engine vehicles. So this transition now There is no one is going to be able to stop. And as it happened with the cellular phones, it was not that government who decided that everyone in India should be using smartphone, but it's just that the technology arrived and the price points were at the right place. The data became cheaper, and the same thing is going to be happening with electric vehicles. We are seeing that with the growth of the renewables. Now, renewables are no longer a premium energy source. Renewable energy is now actually the cheapest energy source available. And this RE plus energy storage is going to completely help us in starting to move in a very stable way away from fossil fuels. That doesn't mean it is going to happen in next 2 years or next 5 years, but definitely any incremental addition or whatever growth what you are anticipating for either petroleum or coal, you can substantially reduce that, because significant part of the share will start coming to these alternate technologies. And over next maybe 20 years, next 30 years, you may start seeing a decline. But right now, I don't think there is any scare in terms of losing of the market for the petroleum products or coal products. I think there is going to be enough demand for that. It's just that we need to start making sure that we don't end up creating more stranded capacity by continuing to invest or expanding our investment into fossil fuels, but start using these energy storage and EVs as a flexible resource for the grid. Now, good part is still maybe 2 or 3 years in India, we had just couple of options available for consumers like Mahindra e-Verito or even the Riva as only options on the four-wheeler. On two-wheeler, we always had more choice, but mainly these were just imported vehicles from China as a clean OEM kits and then just assembling in India. But now we are seeing that almost every customer segment, we are having 5, 6, or possibly even 10 or more options available. With even electric buses, I think Olectra and Tata Motors were the leads, but now we have other players like JBM and others are also coming into play. And there will be many more players who will enter the market as we start expanding the market. Now, one of the areas which, and I know IOCL is also looking into this, and we have been working as IESA, is to try to make sure that we remove barriers for many type of business models. And one of the business model is battery swapping, where you can decouple the vehicle ownership from the cost of the batteries, and customers can pay on a per use basis for battery swapping. And this has a tremendous potential. Like even in 2020, we did series of 4 roundtables to gather inputs and have shared those with Niti Aayog as well as other appropriate ministries, and we are continuing to work on it. But just one caution I would like to give here is that many times battery swapping is seen as a silver bullet, where now any customer who finds EVs as uneconomical because of higher costs will go and switch to the EV. But I think that's a little bit of a short-sighted thinking or maybe incomplete analysis, because for battery swapping to work, the companies who are investing in setting up the battery swapping network also has to recover the cost of the battery swapping. So if you are thinking that, okay, you are a customer who is going to be driving 5 kilometers or 10 meters per day, just going from your home to your nearest office and coming back, and you are going to use battery swapping and you will swap the battery once in a week or once in 2 weeks, the battery swapping company will never be able to recover the investment in the battery swapping network. So right now the focus for battery swapping needs to be for commercial users for last mile delivery and other thing, where they are actually using it, where they may need to actually swap the batteries twice and thrice. And this is not actually, economics is not because you are separating out cost of the battery from cost of the vehicle. The economics works better because you do not need to keep on waiting for 2 hours for charging the vehicle, and you can actually get some additional deliveries done rather than keeping the vehicle parked for 2 or 4 hours in a day. And that's where the focus needs to be. I think just before we started the discussion, there was also slight discussion about the safety. And that's one, again, caution which we want to encourage is that there is no need to rush into just putting in battery swapping at every Kirana store or every gas station. We need to follow very stringent guidelines, especially during the initial days, till we are finding out how these batteries are being used, how these batteries are being brought back to the swapping stations, what is happening with the Indian road driving condition in terms of the maybe vibrations or other thing, and is it creating any problem? And we need to make sure that we are separating out these swapping stations. They are not keeping it closer to maybe hospitals or schools or other thing, where in case if something goes wrong, again, we will try to work with all the partners to make sure that the swapping stations are safe. But we need to be prepared so that in case if something goes wrong, we are not creating a panic. Otherwise, what will happen is that we will end up doing some 100 odd installations. If there is one or two things, something goes wrong, the entire industry will get set back by 2 or 3 years, because then everyone will be against it, saying that, oh, why this is done. So let's be smart about it. Let's go ahead with the battery swapping deployment, but let's do it in a way where we can do it in a sustainable and safe way. And as we learn from the experience, then we can expand and put it in more convenient locations.
Rahul, there are some queries also, probably parallelly you can address, because all these issues, that there are some queries also.
Sure. So you want me to take queries right now, or?
Yeah, because I think we are exceeding the time also. So
okay, sure. So let me check the questions. So, or if you want to read me the question, I'll be happy to answer.
I'll just read out the questions.
Sure. The first... Can you give me 2 minutes? I'll just finish through it so that the flow can be complete. Yeah. So I won't spend more time on it. This is more about the charging structure, but obviously I think integrating
Rohit is taking that session again.
Sure, perfect. Yeah, so there are other models also available apart from just putting in solar. There are concepts being played out with some of the members like VFlowTech, where you can even use like a flow battery, where you can charge the electrolyte at a remote renewable park, and you can deliver that electrolyte, and then that can be used for charging the electric vehicle to sort of reduce the load on it. One of the things which is very important is the making sure that people are not waiting for these future vehicles, but they start applying that. So we are partnered with ESL as well as ARAI ICAT for trying to promote EV adoption in India, where we have developed a platform where any corporate users who want to switch to electric vehicles can monitor their IC engine vehicle usage and try to find out which routes or which vehicles can be switched to electric vehicles. So if anyone is interested, please feel free to reach out to us. ISA will be happy to support in this transition. Overall, as a market, we expect that by 2030, there will be more than 55 million vehicles, EVs will be out on the road, of which in terms of just purely number of vehicles, majority will be electric two-wheelers. But if you see, because there is a differences in the sizes of the batteries, in terms of the requirement of the batteries, it is almost split three-way between electric two-wheelers, three-wheelers, and then the four-wheelers or commercial vehicles. So around 60% will be market will be taken by three-wheeler, and or 60 or 65% market will be taken by three-wheelers and two-wheelers, and rest will be with four-wheelers and buses. Safety is very important. So we have signed up a MOU with UL and have been working very closely with UL on creating awareness. I hope many of you have attended some of these masterclass series. These are open webinars, free webinars. So if you have not yet registered, you can scan the QR code or visit India ESA website and join for future thing. Manufacturing is a very important area where 50 gigawatt hour manufacturing PLI is already there. But we are in fact set a vision that not just 50 gigawatt hour, we are looking at growing that to 100 gigawatt hour by 2030 and 500 gigawatt hour by 2035. So as ISA, we are already looking beyond the mandates which are suggested by government. And we are very much focusing on skill development, where as ISA Academy, we are partnered with many other agencies. And again, if PCRA is interested, we'll be happy to sign a MOU so that we can do joint training program beyond these one-off seminars in a year. There are a lot of online training programs available. There is a job portal available if people are looking at getting into this. Also, there is a magazine like ETN. You can visit etn.news for online access, download podcast, or download white papers from ISA side. At the start, I mentioned next week we are celebrating 10th anniversary. So I'll encourage all of you to join us for the India Energy Storage Week, which is happening at Lalit Hotel and Pragati Maidan, where there are different days for e-mobility, green hydrogen, stationary storage, and manufacturing. Also, please block your calendar for 22nd September for a 24-hour marathon event, where we get more than 200 speakers from 35 plus countries talking about energy storage, e-mobility, and green hydrogen progression happening around the globe. So please bookmark this your calendar and website for participating on this. It's again a free event. So that's it. I'll be happy to take any questions.
The questions are there in the question answer tab.
Sure. So apart from lithium-ion battery, which are the other potential battery which can be used for powering EVs? So again, IOCL itself has done a JV with aluminum air battery, which is quite promising, particularly for like e-rickshaws or buses, where it can act as a range extender. So it is not a completely replacing lithium-ion battery, but it's a hybrid solution. Similarly, for large commercial vehicles or trucks, even fuel cells, which again will be a hybrid thing where fuel cells can become like a longer duration steady power, and lithium-ion batteries will be for acceleration or for storing regenerative braking. So these are some of the options which are being seen. And within lithium-ion batteries, there are improvements happening like solid-state lithium-ion batteries or lithium-sulfur batteries, which can be used for some of the newer applications as well. The next question is, what is a lithium-ion battery cost at cell level and pack level in India, both for NMC and LFP? Again, these prices do keep on changing, especially in last 6 months. There is a almost around 30% plus price increase has happened because of the supply-demand mismatch. But overall, both the LFP and NMC cells, LFP is slightly cheaper. But you can get again LFP battery packs for anywhere from like $120 to $170, depending on the quality of the batteries or depending on the cycle life. Because again, within each chemistry, you can get cells which are lasting 700 to 1,000 cycles, or you can get cells which last 3,000 to 5,000. So there will be premium for those things. So depending on your requirement, you can choose which cells you want, but typically as a battery pack level, you are looking at price points somewhere between $120 to $170 or $180. And it also very much depends on the volume, because so many times what happens is people ask these price points where something like, oh, Tesla is buying battery packs from, or Tesla is making battery packs at $110. So why is it costly? But Tesla is making 35, 40, 50 gigawatt hour of battery packs. And when someone is trying to buy 10 battery packs, you are not going to get those prices. So please remember that. The next one is, as we have seen recently, acute shortage of electricity in India. We still don't have even at least 20 hours of electricity across. So why do you think, how do you think we can cater to demand for EVs? What are your projections regarding demand? See, so this is again a very, very important question. So in India, we do not have shortage of electricity. The problem is the electricity at the peak time. India, we have almost now, we are close to 400 gigawatt of installed generation capacity. And our peak load right now in India is hardly 185 gigawatt. So we do not have shortage of power. We have shortage of electricity during peak time because of outage hours of the generation, other thing. But at the same time, there are still excess electricity available is at night and other thing. So the beauty about electric vehicles or the beauty about stationary energy storage is it allows you to actually balance the demand, and you can actually shift demand by charging it during the off time, and you can use it for offsetting the demand in the peak level. So I don't think there is any concern that Indian grid will not be able to supply electricity for the electric vehicle. In fact, electric vehicles are the only thing which can save Indian discoms. Because the way the India's electric load is increasing, the discoms have to keep on investing into upgrading the distribution network just for meeting the peak power requirement. And they are signing up a lot of PPAs where these are 24/7 power. And typically at night time, they don't have enough load. So they are actually selling many times power back into the Indian Energy Exchange at like 1 rupee or 2 rupee. So I think energy storage, the beauty is it is both acts as a load as well as a generation. And EVs is basically batteries on wheel. So if you have the proper charging infrastructure available and you can use EVs as a flexible load, then it can be a solution. But if you don't do that, and if you just allow everyone to come back home and then start charging at a reduced tariff right in the evening at 6 p.m., 6 or 7 p.m., when the electric grid load is highest, then that is going to be a disaster. So that's where we need smart regulators who really understand how the electric grid works, where is the supply demand imbalance, and how do you incentivize the EV owners to use EV as a flexible load. But if you do that, it would be a great solution.
Next is it true that the amount of energy required for producing EVs is more than the energy saved from the burning of fossil fuels? I don't know.
These type of things I think are actually ridiculous, and there are a lot of I think pseudo scientists who keep on doing it. We have seen this happening with solar, being claimed that solar panels take more energy to manufacture solar panels than the entire solar electricity generated in its lifetime. But all those you can just basically use a simple common sense logic, right? Whatever energy is being used for producing those, that cost of that energy will be accounted in the cost of the product. So if you are able to use the product and recover the economic value of that product during the life and make profit, there is no way you will be using more energy in the production of that. In fact, there are a lot of things where the improvements are happening. Like, for example, I showed chart about energy density, where as compared to 20 years back, where electric batteries had an energy density of 70, 80 watt hour per kg, we are having now batteries which have energy density of 250, 270, or even 350 watt hour per kg. So the amount of energy required for manufacturing batteries and other renewable energy sources keeps on falling down. And if you consider that many of these will have the life of 10 year, 15 year, there is no way you can even think about that they are going to consume. This is a clearly false propaganda being used by some of, especially in US, there are many right-wing think tanks who are being funded for spreading lies, and that's a propaganda by that. I hope in India we are smarter than that.
I think, and last question that we can take is this: lot of two-wheelers are catching fire. So I think so major cause.
Sure. So I'll try to give a quick answer, but if others are interested, there is in fact a 15-minute detailed interview which happened yesterday with CNBC. So you can just Google my name and CNBC and you will find the link. But there are many issues with that. Basically, you need to start looking at right from the cell selection, how the battery packs are being made, how the thermal management is being made in the battery pack, how the battery management system is it being used in that, what type of charging systems are being used, are we following some basic common sense practices so that you are not suddenly starting to charge the vehicle for charging after you drive it for long distance where maybe the battery is already at a high or elevated temperature. Does the battery management system and the vehicle charging system has enough intelligence to try to identify such potential issues and identify that? As well as we need to start looking into actually the power quality issue with the distribution system. This is a part which gets ignored many times. In India, we have seen it many times, the issues related to the power quality, which includes harmonics, which include voltage, which include frequency. We do not have sufficient standards for ensuring good power quality for the consumer. And for many of these electronic devices, that can actually create bigger problem. Like, for example, if you have third harmonics into your power supply, that may actually increase the reasons for causing heating up into the appliances, not just batteries, even your other appliances. And those type of aspects we need to start paying. So right now, I feel that we need to study these issues more. I think everyone who is involved in the ecosystem needs to take their own responsibility. So the battery pack makers need to take responsibility for the proper cell selection. And answer is not simple as, oh, let's just all shift to LFP cells and not use NMC cell, because there are actually battery pack makers who have used NMC cells who have a safer battery pack and they have not had any issue. And on the other hand side, there are LFP packs which are also caught fire. So we need to understand these issues, not jump to conclusions, not take any half-hearted measures, but try to learn from it. Even after 100 years.
Dr. Rahul, I think we are running out of time. Please. If
sure. Yeah, just last sentence. Even after 100 plus years of IC engine experience, we still have IC engine vehicles catching fire. So again, it is expecting that EV industry can solve those problems in the first few years of inception is unlikely. So we need to be careful, but we need to accept some of these issues and keep on solving them quickly and educate the consumers to minimize any loss of life or injuries to people.
Thank you, Dr. Rahul. I think it was a very engrossing talk, and I think the number of questions, we've already exceeded our time by 15 minutes. Thank you for the talk. And I think there's no doubt left that the way you have told us that the manufacturing capacities are increasing and, the energy density is increasing, prices are coming down. So there is no doubt left that actually battery storage is going to play a very leading role in the times to come. I think there are a lot of other questions also which need to be answered, but because of paucity of time, we'll just send these questions across and then we'll revert back to the participants as and when we get the answers from you. With this,
so now sorry for taking longer time.
No, thank you so much for this. And now I will request to Mr. Rohit to deliver his talk. As already, introduced by Mr. Dogre. He is a general manager, retail development, who is doing a lot of work in battery storage and battery swapping. And he's also a key person responsible for rolling out the EV charging and battery initiatives in Indian Oil in our retail outlets. So with this brief introduction, I would request Rohit to start his discussion.
Yeah, thank you. Is my slides visible to you?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, they're visible.
Okay, fine. A very good afternoon to all of you. Basically, it's an honor for us, for me, primarily to be a part of this PCRA-driven Saksham, the flagship annual public awareness campaign, obviously to offer all of the listeners and obviously to us also to contribute in the fuel conservation for health and environment protection, as well as to help India reduce its reliance on crude oil imports and things like that. So, and as rightly pointed out, I'm part of the task force created in Indian Oil, who was trying to bring in this change as regard to the e-mobility. We are into this business of serving customers, and we feel that writing is on the wall where a lot of customers are moving towards EV. Well, the date of adoption, we can discuss a lot of things. We can debate whether the adoption can be at higher, at which year, when it will be. So those things are to be discussed, but we understand there are people who are trying to move into that, and we are there to sort of cater to those customers as well. Mobility future vision has a lot of shades. As you can see, it talks about education, it talks about skill build-up, it talks about customer city. So a lot of things are there overall under e-mobility per se. But as a Saksham platform which is there, we'll discuss on few points. Basically catering to like how all these electric cars and fuel economy standards, how they will impact those fossil fuel, basically how we are going away from that, and what are the technological disruptions that's happening. And there are a lot of government policies, government of India as well as for all across the globe, policies have been evolving who has to help and aid this adoption. And also a lot of talk on green earth and economic security and all those things are there. And finally, since I belong to oil and gas fraternity also, we also tell you like how we as a part of thing, how trying to sort of address in this. Basically, whatever it be covering is like a global and Indian scenario, then what are the developments that's happening, then projections, and then implementation and all. So I'll start with this quote where it said that stone age didn't end for the lack of stone, and the oil age will end long before the world runs out of oil. So that's the statement which we always have, and I wanted to start with that. The global energy mix is changing. That was already that was captured by the previous speaker as well. A lot of these things, there are a lot of geopolitical thing happening. We all are aware about the Russia and Ukraine differences, wars, and then you have a lot of